I don't think that there's a single person out there who doesn't appreciate the existence of gaming music. It's something that's universally respected by pretty much everyone. Even if you absolutely loathe the game or game series in question, the music is usually something that always manages to impress and resonate with even the most critical of commentators. It adds so much life to these worlds, portrays so many different emotions with its sounds, and acts as standalone anthems for the game itself as well as the entire fandom surrounding it. Obviously, many of these big companies know all of this, and occasionally when the time is right or when the franchise in question is approaching some sort of big milestone, we as fans sometimes receive an incredible gift in the form of a series-wide musical event. Now, gaming musical events are incredibly interesting, and they're interesting in the sense that they can come in a bunch of different forms. As the medium was becoming bigger and gaining more mainstream appeal, many of these organizations start to expand on what the musical event could possibly look like. Many of these OSTs are also based on a particular genre of music or have little bits and pieces of multiple. So figuring out the most effective way to respect these songs can be very tricky a lot of the time. But I also feel like there are other factors outside of these arrangements that can impact the quality of the performance, like the setting, where it takes place, whether or not it's a part of a bigger event, or if it's just its own standalone thing, whether or not it's live or only viewable online. Like, what I'm trying to say is that, at least for me, there are a lot of different things that can determine whether or not these events actually turn out good. But for this video, I mainly want to focus on the how part of that discussion. How do a lot of these companies and music groups go about celebrating some of these legendary songs? In two ways. I know it's not that much, but bear with me. Now, of all the musical events that I'll be discussing today, I'm willing to bet that these are by far the most unanimously disliked out of all of them, and admittedly, I do kinda understand why. Even though they're not the main focus, I still think that they are musical events that happen in a bigger, gaming-oriented showcase, and that right there is something that turns a lot of people off. However, I just want to put in perspective that all these talented musicians and composers performing at gaming-oriented events is such a huge deal for several reasons. Because not only does this get more eyes on the event, but it represents such a big leap for the entire gaming landscape. This medium has become so massive to the point where all these big name artists are willing to do all these flashy performances in front of a gaming-centered audience. And whether or not you're a fan of the performances, that's just something that's really cool. It's a totally legitimate way of celebrating not necessarily a particular game, but just the medium and the culture at large. And you know, it also helps that these major artists help with the views and the revenue and all that other fun stuff. However, even still, all of that really doesn't take away from the amount of things that are currently going against these performances. When you essentially put a musical concert in the midst of all of these trailers, announcements, and awards sometimes, you inherently are going to run into a lot of very big pacing issues, especially when these presentations go on for several hours sometimes. These just come off as yet another thing you have to sit through before you get back to the disappointment, if we're being honest. It just doesn't capture the attention of a gaming audience in the way that they think that it would. And you know, that's a real shame. I'm probably the only human being on this planet to go back to a lot of these performances, but when approaching them with no announcements or trailers getting in the way and just judging them completely on their own merits, I really missed out on quite a few of these. I was shocked at how hyped a lot of these performances could truly be. Death Stranding by Sherviz, the Dragon Age theme by Lindsey Sterling, frickin' Imagine Dragons. All of these performances, plus many more, were just so incredibly cool. It also helps that the music itself was actually good. I know that's kinda par for the course, but man, you'd be surprised. Quite a few of these performances do tend to struggle a lot with that part, as they can either just be man playing instrument, woo, or just be completely awful altogether. But no one cares about those, just No, get out. The importance that all these concerts have is something that you simply cannot deny. They symbolize and represent a lot more than what many people may think, and in terms of celebrating the industry and the various games within them, these concerts are one of the most effective ways of doing so, as long as you do them right. Next! This is probably the most traditional way in which video game music is celebrated, thankfully. I'm very biased when it comes to gaming-oriented symphonies/orchestras. It's just, there's something so magical about hearing these songs with actual live instruments. Hearing all these songs that were originally from a video game with so much class and professionalism can be an absolutely surreal experience. And these composers very creatively use these instruments to really drive home the mood and the tone that these songs are originally going for. It's just so cool. The grandness, the energy, and most importantly the celebratory feel manages to hit me each and every single time I run into one of these showcases. And I really do feel like that's important. These concerts should feel like celebrations of the game/series in question because that is essentially what they are. These melodies mean and represent a ton of different things to a ton of different people. But man, like, there are just so many good performances of this style. Like the Zelda ones, they were really neat. Nintendo ended up hosting 2 concerts to celebrate its 25th and 30th anniversaries respectively, and they were both great. Tons of fan favorite songs are rearranged here, and they all sound incredible. Although some of the instrument choices were a bit questionable, I personally found that quite a few of these arrangements had certain elements missing from them. I'm looking at you, Temple Remix. And for both concerts, there were some pretty glaring omissions that really should have made it in. But overall, I can't really complain all that much for 2 really good concerts celebrating some of the most iconic tunes in gaming history. And speaking of Nintendo-oriented orchestras, Kirby also had quite a few orchestras, again celebrating its 25th and 30th anniversaries. Similarly to the Zelda ones, they did a really good job at representing the entire series in music form, and did such a nice job reimagining a lot of these tracks. I want to give serious bonus points to the 30th Anniversary Music Fest for simply how over the top it was. The venue was absolutely packed with everyone holding these light up wand thingamajigs. There was some pre-recorded stuff thrown there as well. The voice actress for Kirby was at the show and performed the vocal theme for Forgotten Land with Mitchell, who, fun fact, hasn't revealed her face to the public yet, to my knowledge at least. And sometimes the screen on the bottom that would show gameplay footage would show Kirby dancing his cute little ass off. Look at him go! But man, both of these concerts were still incredible celebrations of Kirby's music, as well as just Kirby in general. But if we want to talk about really good musical symphonies, we have to bring attention to the only one that I actually haven't seen prior to making this video, Gaming in Symphony by the Danish National Symphony Orchestra. This was aired all the way back in 2018, and it is essentially what it sounds like. However, I wanted to bring this concert into light because of how disgustingly well these songs were rearranged. Now, I just want to mention briefly that most of the tracks that these songs were featured in were from game series that I'm not the most well versed in. There are songs from GTA, Halo, Call of Duty, Uncharted, and all the other fun stuff. And while I know some tracks from those games, a grand majority of the arrangements flew over my head. But still, like, even with that in mind, I still got super excited during literally almost every melody. Like, I simply just can't oversell how cool it is to hear these songs with live instruments, especially with games that you wouldn't really think would work well with that. They just managed to find some way to make it work so incredibly well. There were just so many creative sounds and instruments that they used here. Like, for one of them, a guy was just straight up banging a lid with a trash can. A trash can. And it actually worked really well. But even still, there are all sorts of cool little instruments that I never seen before in a concert like this. It's just so cool, dude. Just to reiterate, I don't play half of these series that are featured in this concert. But even still, even with that fact, this concert was just immaculate. And if you are someone who is a fan of any of these franchises, this is a no-brainer of a recommendation. Now, all the concerts that I've looked at thus far have been really enjoyable. They're all super well done and pay respect to the franchises in very strong and meaningful ways. However, even with all that withstanding, if I'm keeping it 100, I think that I saved the best one for last, and I don't think I'm alone in saying that. June 23rd, 2021. God, that sure was a day to remember. Not only were we 2 days into the summer weather, which was actually a bit too warm looking back, but it was also the 30th birthday of a character that means a lot to me. That wasn't Mega Man, or Mario, or Donkey Kong, or Kirby, or Samus. Leading up to this date, we knew that we had a bunch of Sonic-related content on the way. An anime TV show, a new classic Sonic collection, a bunch of new merchandise, and of course, the teaser for an entirely new Sonic game. However, all of those things were at least a year or two off, and they didn't really have much to show when it came to any of them. The only things that we knew we were getting in relatively close proximity was a remaster of the only good game of the series, and a full-on symphony orchestra that would not only go live on Sonic's birthday, but would be entirely free to watch. I remember going into the presentation already having the most intense excitement. Sonic games, regardless of their quality, never misses in terms of providing some fantastic music. And I was just so excited and eager to see what songs would make the cut and how glorious they would sound with live instruments. But dude, oh my, let me tell you, even as someone who went in with pretty high expectations, this concert still managed to somehow exceed all of them 50 million times over. This right here is it. This is the greatest video game orchestra ever. Every single one of these tunes were rearranged in the perfect fashion. They took so many creative liberties with using these instruments, man, and they're just so clever with how they use to make these songs sound so much more richer. Like, God. Scrap Brain sounded so climactic and foreboding for like the only time ever. Sky Sanctuary went so goddamn hard. Like, I love how it progressively gets more grander and epic as it goes on. And man, that climax where it goes bum 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 bum, it's just, oh. That It Doesn't Matter remix really hit in the feels. I started getting very emotional when I heard that violin towards the beginning of the song, man. SA1 is a game I'm very close with, and that entire section of the show just took me back in the best way possible. But dude, that His World arrangement went absolutely crazy! The violin, the brass, and that percussion all sounded so incredibly raw. And it's Sonic 06 of all games, like, what? I've always loved Wonderworld, but man, just hearing it here with all these live instruments just made me feel so happy and kinda nostalgic. Something about it is just so peppy and bubbly, I just love it. Ignore the fact that I haven't played Lost World yet, that's not relevant. Aquarium Park, dude, as soon as I heard the part where it goes da 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 with the bass in the background further amplifying it, it just, Starlight Carnival is so incredibly beautiful and bombastic, but it still kept the energy alive from the original version. The Tropical Resort sounded like it came straight out of a Disney film with how wild the flutes were going and just... Okay, I went a bit too fast there, sorry. God, that entire Sonic Color section was just a highlight in of itself, at least for me personally. But man, like, if you love that game as much as I do, our Lord and Savior Tomoya Ohtani has got you covered, because both him and his entire band are also a part of this presentation. And they just straight up made me cry 3 times over. They played a massively rockified version of Reach for the Stars, which again hit me right in the feelies. It's such a fantastic theme for the character. However, I still can't believe I'm saying this, but the second I heard the opening vocal of Speak With Your Heart, I was literally on the floor. It's scientifically proven that this one song is the cure for all depression, and they're rearranging it with the entire orchestra in the background, and it sounds better? What? I was and still am in awe at just how good this version of an already amazing song sounds. And of course, they just had to play Endless Possibilities right after that. Like, I was actually dead. Like, it was over for me. This is my favorite vocal track from any Sonic game. And Nate Wants to Battle is doing it? Dog, like, are you sure this isn't like a dream? Am I dead? What the hell's going on here? I was losing my mind during all of this. Like, you just can't put 3 incredibly important songs to me back to back in the same section like that, guys, alright? I'm surprised my eyeballs didn't wash away due to how much I was crying. But obviously, it wouldn't be a Sonic-themed musical event if they didn't feature Crush Freaking 40. The performance was absolutely fantastic, as to be expected, with pretty much all their major songs being here and accounted for. But even still, there were some surprises, like the Shadow the Hedgehog theme, I Am, being played, which had me laughing my ass off, and then being followed up by Night of the Wind, which completely killed me. However, surprising absolutely no one, City Escape and Live and Learn finished things off. Obviously with them going so unnecessarily extra with everything, as is the standard with this entire presentation, if we're being honest. Live and Learn especially, like, look at this editing, dude. I hated this song, and 17-year-old Yaz was still yelling each and every single word back at the screen regardless. To say this concert was a success would be an incredibly offensive understatement. This is going to sound super biased because it is, but you simply can't find this level of passion placed into any other musical event in this industry. I can't name another presentation that made me smile, that made me cry, that made me scream, and that somehow managed to unify one of the most divided fan bases in gaming history. Everything surrounding this event was just incredibly surreal. And mind you, that's not even taking into consideration just how damn obscure these guys went on us. We got some Game Gear arrangements, some Sega Saturn stuff, Greenlight Ride from TSR, the Crush 40 version of Sonic Boom, which sucks, but still, it was very cool to see. The Sonic Symphony is absolutely legendary. Like, it's the bottom line. It achieves everything that gaming musical celebration should achieve. But also, like, the fact that I was able to go into fanboy mode when talking about it, the fact that so many other fans were gushing and losing their minds right there with me, just goes to show you the power and potential that these concerts truly have. Again, this is coming from someone who is heavily biased, but this concert is perfection. This is the new gold standard for these types of presentations. This is the greatest video game musical event of all time.